Of course, we did have other responsibilities. President Bush had set a broad foreign policy agenda. We were determined to confront the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. We were improving America's relations with the world's great powers. We had to change an Iraq policy that was making no progress against a hostile regime which regularly shot at U.S. planes enforcing UN Security Council resolutions. And we had to deal with the occasional crisis. For instance, when the crew of a Navy plane was detained in China for 11 days. We also moved to develop a new and comprehensive strategy to try and eliminate the Al-Qaeda network. President Bush understood the threat, and he understood its importance. He made clear to us that he did not want to respond to Al-Qaeda one attack at a time. He told me he was tired of swatting flies. This new strategy was developed over the spring and summer of 2001. And was approved by the President's senior national security officials on September 4. It was the very first major national security policy directive of the Bush administration, not Russia. Not missile defense, not Iraq, but the elimination of Al-Qaeda. Although this national security presidential directive was originally a highly classified document, we've arranged for portions of it to be declassified to help the Commission in its work, and I will describe some of it today. The strategy set as a goal the elimination of the Al-Qaeda network and threat and ordered the leadership. Of relevant U.S. departments and agencies to make the elimination of Al-Qaeda a high priority, and to use all aspects of our national power, intelligence, financial, diplomatic, and military, to meet that goal. And it gave cabinet secretaries and department heads specific responsibilities. For instance, it directed the Secretary of State to work with other countries to end all sanctuaries given to Al-Qaeda. It directed the Secretaries of the Treasury and State to work with foreign governments to seize or freeze assets and holdings of Al-Qaeda and its benefactors. It directed the Central Intelligence, the Director of Central Intelligence, to prepare an aggressive program. Of covert activities to disrupt Al-Qaeda and provide assistance to anti-Taliban groups operating in Afghanistan. It tasked the Director of OMB Office of Management and Budget with ensuring that sufficient funds were available in budgets over the next 5 years to meet the goals laid out in the strategy. And it directed the Secretary of Defense to, and I quote, ensure that contingency planning processes include plans against Al-Qaeda and associated terrorist facilities in Afghanistan, including leadership, command control and communications, training, and logistics facilities, and against Taliban targets in Afghanistan. Including leadership, command control, air and air defense, ground forces and logistics, and to eliminate weapons of mass. Destruction which Al-Qaeda and associated terrorist groups may acquire or manufacture. Including those stored in underground bunkers. This was a change from the prior strategy Presidential Decision Directive 62, signed in 1998. Which ordered the Secretary of Defense to provide transportation to bring individual terrorists to the U. for trial, to protect DoD forces overseas. And to be prepared to respond to terrorist and weapons of mass destruction incidents. More importantly, we recognized that no counterterrorism strategy could succeed in isolation. As you know from the Pakistan and Afghanistan strategy documents that we have made available to the Commission, our counterterrorism strategy was a part of a broader package of strategies that address the complexities of the region. Integrating our counterterrorism and regional strategies was the most difficult and the most important aspect of the new strategy to get right. Al-Qaeda was both a client of and a patron. To the Taliban, which in turn was supported by Pakistan. Those relationships provided Al-Qaeda with a powerful umbrella of protection. And we had to sever that. This was not easy. Not that we hadn't tried. Within a month of taking office, President Bush sent a strong, private message to President Musharraf. Urging him to use his influence with the Taliban to bring bin Laden to justice and to close down Al-Qaeda training camps. Secretary Powell actively urged the Pakistanis, including Musharraf himself, to abandon support for the Taliban. I remember well meeting with the Pakistani foreign minister, and I think I referred to this meeting in my private meeting with you in my office on June of 2001. And I delivered what I considered to be a very tough message. He met that message with a rote answer and with an expressionless response. America's Al-Qaeda policy wasn't working because our Afghanistan policy wasn't working. And our Afghanistan policy wasn't working because our Pakistan policy wasn't working. We recognized that America's counterterrorism policy had to be connected to our regional strategies and to our overall foreign policy. To address these problems, I had to make sure that key regional experts were involved. Not just counterterrorism experts. I brought in Zalmay Khalilzad, an expert on Afghanistan who, as a senior diplomat in the 1980s, had worked closely with the Afghan Mujahideen, helping them to turn back the Soviet invasion. I also ensured the participation of the NSC experts on South Asia. As well as the Secretary of State and his regional specialists. Together, we developed a new strategic approach to Afghanistan. Instead of the intense focus on the Northern Alliance, we emphasized the importance of the South, the social and political heartland of the country. Our new approach to Pakistan combined the use of carrots and sticks to persuade Pakistan to drop its support for the Taliban. And we began to change our approach to India to preserve stability on the continent. While we were developing this new strategy to deal with Al-Qaeda, we also made decisions on a number of specific anti-Al-Qaeda initiatives that had been proposed by Dick Clark to me in an early memorandum after we had taken office. Many of these ideas had been deferred by the last administration, and some had been on the table since. 1998 we increased counter-terrorism assistance to Uzbekistan. We bolstered the Treasury departments. Activities to track and seize terrorist assets. We increased funding for counter-terrorism activities across several agencies. And we moved to arm Predator unmanned surveillance vehicles for action against Al-Qaeda. When threat reporting increased during the spring and summer of 2001, we moved the U. S government at all levels to a high state of alert and activity. Let me clear up any confusion about the relationship between the development of our new strategy and the actions that we took to respond to the threats of the summer. Policy development and crisis management require different approaches. Throughout this period, we did both simultaneously. For the essential crisis management task, we depended on the Counterterrorism Security Group. Chaired by Dick Clark, to be the interagency nerve center. The CSG consisted of senior counterterrorism experts from the CIA, the FBI, the Department of Justice. The Defense Department, including the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the State Department, and the Secret Service. The CSG had met regularly for many years. And its members had worked through numerous periods of heightened threat activity. As threat information increased, the CSG met more frequently, sometimes daily. To review and analyze the threat reporting and to coordinate actions in response. CSG members also had ready access to their cabinet secretaries. and could raise any concerns that they had at the highest levels. The threat reporting that we received in the spring and summer of 2001 was not specific as to time. Nor place, nor manner of attack. Almost all of the reports focused on Al-Qaeda activities outside the United States. Especially in the Middle East and in North Africa. In fact, the information that was specific enough to be actionable referred to terrorist operations. Overseas. Most often, though, the threat reporting was frustratingly vague. Let me read you some of the actual chatter that was picked up in that spring and summer. Unbelievable news coming in weeks, said one. Big event, there will be a very, 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 very big uproar. There will be attacks in the near future. Troubling, yes. But they don't tell us when. They don't tell us where. They don't tell us who. And they don't tell us how. In this context, I want to address in some detail one of the briefing items that we did receive. Since its content has been frequently mischaracterized. On August 6, 2001, the President's intelligence briefing included a response to questions that he had earlier raised about any Al-Qaeda intentions to strike our homeland. The briefing team reviewed past intelligence reporting, mostly dating from the 1990s. Regarding possible Al-Qaeda plans to attack inside the United States. It referred to uncorroborated reporting that from 1998 that a terrorist might attempt to hijack a U.S. aircraft in an attempt to blackmail the government into releasing